Every night, the last train of the day rolled into the small station of Murfield at precisely 11:45 p.m. The platform was always empty by then, save for the occasional owl perched silently on the lamp posts. Except for one night. It was late October, the air thick with the smell of wet leaves and distant smoke. The last train creaked to a stop, its rusty wheels groaning against the tracks. The conductor, a grizzled man named Henry, had worked this route for over 30 years. He knew every station, every passenger, and every shadow that flickered under the dim station lights. But tonight was different. As the train halted, Henry noticed a figure standing alone at the edge of the platform. She was a woman, dressed in a long, old-fashioned coat, with a wide-brimmed hat that cast a shadow over her face. She looked out of place, like someone who had stepped out of a different time. Her skin was pale, almost translucent under the flickering light. Her hands were clasped tightly around a small leather bag. Henry opened the door and stepped out, ready to help her aboard. She didn't move. She just stood there, staring at the train. "Evening, ma'am," Henry called out, his voice echoing in the cold night air. "This is the last train. Are you getting on?" The woman turned her head slowly, her eyes meeting his. They were dark, too dark, as if they absorbed all the light around them. A chill ran down Henry's spine. "Yes," she replied softly, her voice barely more than a whisper. "I've been waiting." Henry stepped back, unease gnawing at him. There was something off about her, something that made him want to turn and run. But duty called, and he wasn't one to abandon a passenger. She boarded the train without a sound, moving like a shadow across the floor. Henry followed, feeling a strange weight in the air, as if the very presence of the woman had thickened the atmosphere. As the train lurched forward, he watched her from the corner of his eye. She chose a seat in the back, near the window, and stared out into the night. The other passengers, there were only 3, seemed unaware of her, as if she didn't exist. Henry shook his head, trying to shake off the sense of dread creeping up his spine. Miles passed, and the train rattled on through the dark countryside. The passengers, tired from their long day, gradually drifted off to sleep. But not Henry. He couldn't stop watching her, that strange woman in the back seat. Suddenly, the lights flickered and dimmed, and the train shuddered as if hitting an invisible wall. Henry's heart skipped a beat. He rushed to the front, checking the controls, but everything was normal. The train continued on its way, steady as always. When he turned back, the woman was standing. Her face was hidden by the shadows of her hat, but her eyes, those dark, hollow eyes, were fixed on him. "It's almost time," she said, her voice echoing in his ears. "Time for what?" Henry asked, his voice trembling. "You'll see," she whispered, and then she was gone. Henry blinked, trying to make sense of what he just saw. The seat was empty. He rushed down the aisle, searching the train, but the woman had vanished. The doors were still locked, the windows sealed. There was no way she could have left. Panic set in as the train approached the final station. The other passengers stirred awake, oblivious to the strange encounter. Henry couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was about to happen. The train screeched to a halt at the last stop. As the doors opened, the passengers hurried off, eager to be home. But Henry hesitated. He stepped out onto the platform, scanning the shadows, but there was no sign of the woman. Just as he was about to board the train again, he heard a faint whisper, carried on the wind. "Thank you." Henry froze, his blood running cold. He turned slowly, and there, standing at the far end of the platform, was the woman. Her hat was gone, and in the pale moonlight, he could see her face, gaunt, lifeless, with eyes as black as the void. Before he could react, she stepped back into the darkness and disappeared, leaving nothing but the echo of her whisper. The next morning, Henry found an old newspaper on the seat where the woman had sat. The headline read, "Tragic Train Accident Claims 5 Lives, October 30th, 1923. Beneath the headline was a photo of the victims, including a woman in a long coat and wide-brimmed hat. Henry's hands trembled as he realized what he had seen. The woman had been waiting for her final journey, and he had unknowingly taken her home. From that night on, Henry was never the same. He avoided the last train, no longer trusting the darkness that lurked in the corners of the night. And every year, on the anniversary of the accident, he could still hear her voice on the wind, whispering, "Thank you."